Have you ever really thought about what goes into that tiny pill you swallow? I mean, it seems pretty simple, right? A solid little chunk of medicine.
Well, yeah, you would think so, but
But there's a whole world of fascinating science happening at the molecular level. And it all starts with something called crystallization.
that's right. And today we're going to do a deep dive into crystallization and solid form selection.
Exactly. And to do this, we're going to pull from all sorts of sources, like the really in-depth stuff from pharmaceutical scientists, the hardcore chemistry, and then also some more general overviews of drug development.
Yeah, it's amazing how much goes into just choosing the right solid form of a drug. It's not just making a solid, it's like a fundamental decision.
It's a fundamental decision, really.
Oh, yeah, it impacts everything. Like, how easy is that drug to handle, how long it will last on the shelf, and most importantly, how well it actually works inside your body.
So it's kind of like choosing the right building blocks for the medicine.
Yeah, exactly. A good analogy, actually. So, to kick things off, let's talk about why this whole crystallization thing is so important.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. What makes it so important that a drug needs to be in a specific solid state?
Well, for a drug to do its job, it usually needs to be absorbed into your system, right?
Right.
And to reach its target and do its thing. Like we see in the process of new drug discovery and development, absorption is really tied to the drug's properties in its solid form, especially its ability to dissolve.
Okay, so it's not just about getting it into a solid form, it has to be the right kind of solid form.
Precisely. Think of it like this. If a drug can't dissolve properly, it can't get where it needs to go and, won't do much good. Even for injected drugs, they still need to stay in solution to avoid causing problems.
So the drug has to dissolve properly at the right time and the right place in the body.
Yeah, exactly. So even if a drug is injected, it still needs to remain in a dissolved state at that injection site.
Gotcha. So then what about polymorphism? I've heard that term before. How does that play into all of this?
Polymorphism.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. Basically, it's the ability of a drug to exist in more than one crystal form.
Oh, okay. So it's not just one solid form. There could be multiple ones.
Right, think of it like carbon. You've got diamond super hard, and then you've got graphite. Like what's in your pencil? Totally
Right.
different. All right.
Totally. But they're both made of carbon.
Exactly. Same atoms, different arrangement. And that's the same with these drug crystals. Different arrangements mean different properties.
Okay, so for a drug, that means.
Different properties mean different ways it behaves in the body, like how easily it dissolves or how stable it is on the shelf, all that jazz.
So different polymorphs, which is what these different forms are called, can actually impact how well the drug works.
Big time. Even the same polymorph can change over time. Like this research from back in 1990 by Cinco, Yi, and Amadon, it showed that a solid drug's ability to dissolve can actually change as it ages.
Well, hold on. So even if you have the right form, it can still change and maybe not work as well. That's a bit scary.
It is something to keep in mind. And it's discussed in early drug development, bringing a preclinical candidate to the clinic. And when you start with different polymorphs from the get-go, well, those differences in how fast they dissolve can be even more dramatic. This is super important for drugs taken orally because if it doesn't dissolve well in your stomach...
It might not get absorbed properly.
Exactly. It's like trying to make tea with a tea bag that doesn't open. You're not going to get a very strong brew.
Uh-huh. I get it.
There was this study done in 2002 by Ungst and others. They looked at an antiretroviral drug. It highlighted how a drug's solubility is affected by its solid form and how that can interact with how it's formulated and even whether you've eaten or not. It's also talked about in early drug development, bringing a preclinical candidate to the clinic.
Wow, so many factors to consider. So how do scientists make sure they get the right polymorph in the first place?
Well, controlling the crystallization process is key. As we saw discussed in continuous manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, using techniques like continuous crystallization gives them much more control over which form is produced.
Makes sense. More
Yeah.
control, less chance of ending up with the wrong form. Now, what about stability? How long a drug lasts on the shelf matters too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The stability of a drug substance, both physically and chemically, is a big deal.
Okay, so we don't want the drug to break down or change over time.
Right, because as Preclinical Development Handbook ADME and Biopharmaceutical Properties explains, if a drug degrades, it becomes less effective and potentially unsafe.
So keeping that shelf life long is super important. But how does this all tie back to crystallization and the solid form?
Well, the solid form you choose can directly impact stability. You can think of it like stacking boxes. A well-organized stack is going to be much more stable than a messy pile, right?
Yeah, so a more ordered structure is more stable. Makes sense.
Okay. Exactly. And the crystalline structure does just that. It creates a more ordered, stable environment for those drug molecules. And there are tons of examples in the scientific literature where researchers have found ways to make drugs more stable through crystallization.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, imagine a scenario where they're working with a drug that's not very stable. They might find that a specific crystal form is way more resistant to breaking down, so then they focus on tweaking the crystallization process to produce that more stable form consistently.
So they're kind of like fine-tuning the recipe to get the best results.
That's a great way to put it. They might find that adjusting the acidity of the solution or using a specific blend of solvents does the trick. In some cases, they might even be able to remove impurities during recrystallization that could speed up degradation. And voila, a more stable drug.
That's incredible. So it's clear that getting the right solid form is crucial, but how does it affect turning that solid into something we can actually take, like a pill or a capsule? How do they formulate it?
Great question. The solid form of the drug basically dictates what's possible when it comes to formulation.
Okay.
As the process of new drug discovery and development points out, those who formulate the final medicine need to consider a lot of things, like the drug's physical and chemical properties and how it behaves in the body, all those details.
Yeah.
So, solubility and dissolution, which we've talked about, and which are influenced by the crystal form, are super important for the formulator.
Right, because they directly impact bioavailability, right?
Yeah.
Like how much of the drug actually gets into our system.
Exactly. If a drug doesn't dissolve well, formulators have to get creative. They might have to use techniques like making nanosuspensions. It's this cool thing where they create these teeny tiny drug particles to boost the surface area, which helps with dissolution.
Wait, so they make the particles super small so they dissolve better?
Yep, that's the idea. And there's some research from 2001 by Muller, Jacobs, and Kaiser on this. It's mentioned in early drug development, bringing a preclinical candidate to the clinic. It's kind of like grinding coffee beans. The finer the grind, the stronger the coffee.
Ah, I see the analogy.
Yeah.
So they're basically manipulating the physical properties of the drug to overcome limitations caused by the crystal form.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And the scientific literature is full of real-world examples of this. Think about a situation where a drug keeps forming big, stubborn crystals that don't want to dissolve. They can tweak the crystallization process to produce smaller particles instead. Carefully controlling things like the solvent they use and the speed at which it's added. They might even use seed crystals to guide the
The
process.
seed crystals.
Yeah, it's like giving the crystal formation a blueprint to follow. But the goal here is to avoid uncontrolled crystal formation, what's called secondary nucleation. You want a nice, consistent batch of particles, all roughly the same size.
Got it. That makes the formulation more predictable and reliable. So we've talked a lot about the physical aspects, but what about the chemistry involved in all this?
The chemistry. It's the foundation of everything, really. Understanding the chemical processes during crystallization is crucial for controlling the solid form we end up with. By manipulating things like temperature, solvents, mixing speed, all that good stuff.
It's like they're conducting a microscopic orchestra, getting everything in sync to produce the perfect crystal.
That's a great way to put it. And with techniques like continuous crystallization, they have a lot more control over these parameters. That means they can consistently get high-quality crystals and effectively get rid of impurities.
It sounds very precise.
Oh, it is. They even use advanced techniques like seeding, which we talked about before, adding small crystals of the desired form to guide the growth. And they use sensors that monitor the crystallization in real time. This is called process analytical technology, or PAT for short. And all of this helps them control what we call supersaturation.
Supersaturation. That
Yeah.
sounds important.
Oh, it is. It's like the driving force behind crystallization. Think of it as how much of the drug is dissolved in the solution beyond its normal solubility limit. The higher the supersaturation, the stronger the push for the drug to come out of solution and form crystals.
So by carefully controlling supersaturation, they can kind of steer the crystallization process in the right direction.
Exactly. And you can find lots of examples in the literature where scientists have used their knowledge of chemistry to really fine-tune this process. For instance, there's a case where they use what's called a two-phase system with a phase transfer catalyst. This allows them to carry out a chemical reaction in a more controlled manner, ultimately helping them get the right solid intermediate, which is a stepping stone to the final drug crystal.
So even the steps before crystallization are influenced by this deep understanding of chemistry.
Absolutely. Everything is connected. There was another case where they carefully control the amount of a solvent called methanol and the temperature during a reaction, and then followed that with crystallization. And by doing this, they were able to produce a super pure and stable intermediate. It's all about tweaking those chemical parameters to get the best results.
Fascinating. So even seemingly small changes can have a ripple effect throughout the whole process.
For sure. And as we mentioned earlier, with continuous crystallization, controlling supersaturation isn't just about getting the right crystal form, it's also about preventing issues like agglomeration, which is when crystals clump together, and particle breakage. Those things can really mess with the final formulation.
Wow, so much complexity in something that seems so simple. It's incredible how much science goes into creating something like a pill.
Right. And it all starts with understanding crystallization and solid form selection.
It seems like we've just scratched the surface here.
Oh, definitely. But hopefully, this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the hidden world of drug development.
Absolutely. We've seen that crystallization is much more than just making a solid. It's a fundamental process that shapes a drug's properties, from its polymorphism and stability to how it can ultimately be formulated into an effective medicine.
It really underscores the interconnectedness of chemistry, solid-state science, and formulation. It's a beautiful dance of scientific disciplines all working together to ensure that the medicines we rely on actually work as intended.
It's amazing to think that every time we take a pill or a capsule, we're benefiting from this intricate process. Scientists have carefully selected a specific crystal structure, often from numerous possibilities, to ensure it dissolves at the right time, stays stable on the shelf, and ultimately delivers its therapeutic benefit. It makes you wonder, what other hidden complexities are at play in the medicines that keep us healthy?
It's something to ponder for sure.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for joining us as we explored the fascinating world of crystallization and solid form selection.
It's been a pleasure. Always happy to talk shop.
Until next time, stay curious.